Hello beautiful people, and welcome to Arise with Jessica Carey. This week we have had Basil week, and today I'm going to talk about my Basil musings and how I've used Basil through the last few years, but especially this week as I've really anchored into the energy of Basil and how I've used it amongst my days and throughout the moments of my days. So Basil is the oil of renewal. So when I smell this baby, when I smell this bottle of plant alchemy, I feel really restored. It brings a sense of safety and support to my cells. So how I've anchored this beautiful bottle of Basil into my home is I use it on a deep energetic level to support my nervous system. So how I do that is I actually work with my adrenal, my kidney, and my Jing energy. So some of you may be wondering what Jing is. So Jing in Chinese medicine is also known as our life force. So the amount of vitality and energy we have to move throughout our days and to bring to the world. So for me, it's an energy. And a couple of years ago, when I lived in London, I came home and I ended up with adrenal chronic fatigue. So for me, learning about the energy system to do with my kidneys, to do with my adrenals, and to do with the Jing energy or the Qi energy of my body has become really important foundation of my life. And I've done that through doing energy work, through doing breath work, through doing any exercise or movements that have to do with the adrenal and the kidney system, which also link back to the nervous system and the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So how I've incorporated doTERRA's bottle of Basil into that is I actually use that on the reflex points of my feet for my adrenal and my kidney points, and I actually also apply it to the small of my back. So where our kidneys and our adrenal glands sit. So the reason I apply it there is because that's an energy portal for me, and you can work this through the meridian systems as well, but it actually renews and supports my life force. So that's how I have learnt to use Basil on a deep energetic level. Basil is quite a strong oil, so I actually sometimes feel it's a little bit overwhelming or a bit too much for me. I use Aroma Touch instead because Aroma Touch has basil in it. I love Aroma Touch. Aroma Touch is the oil of relaxation. So you can mix the two together and apply them with some Carey oil on your adrenal area. I do that most nights, especially after a big day on my feet. So yeah, I really use it for that renewal of cells, that activation and that nourishment of my life force energy. So I would encourage you to go and do your own research on Jing or Qi energy. It's really, really important and vital to our overall well-being. And yeah, there's so much more I can share about that, but I would really encourage you to check in with yourself, because we're in a world these days where busy is like worn like a badge of honor. And I really want to honor you all, anyone who watches this video, that busy is not a badge of honor. Busy is not something you say when someone asks, how are you? And it's become like this statement that it's actually supposed to be a good thing that you're busy, or that we're wanting some type of response or some type of reaction from when we say we're busy. And it's the most commonly used word that I use when I ask someone how they are. And I just really, really, really encourage and honor you if you are really supporting your adrenals, your nervous system, your kidney energy, because it is so vital in how we show up in the world. And busy is not something that needs to be celebrated. It's become a dis-ease and a disharmony in society. So nourish your beautiful adrenals, nourish your body, nourish your soul, and learn to use Basil in your life on an energetic level for supporting those boundaries and your own life force. So that's the first way that I use basil. Hey Nicole, how are you, darling? Mwah. So basil is also a really beautiful way to support the brain function. So I use basil throughout my days, especially if I'm on the computer or I'm feeling a bit flat in my mind. I use that with a mix of wild orange and basil, either in the diffuser. Generally put more wild orange than basil because basil can be quite strong. But I mix the two of those together and in the diffuser or rub on the back of the neck. It also supports any muscle tension and like soothes them as well. So I love that. And also basil is known, of course, for its culinary benefits. So basil pesto, like if you love cooking, even if you don't, like I absolutely love this because it enhances the flavor of any of the food you cook. You can use doTERRA's essential oils by your own choice, by your own free will if you choose to, and add it to enhance the flavor of your food. Everyone thinks I'm a great cook. I go all right, but my mum's better. And basil is great in basil pesto, using it on pizzas. If you want to make, pastas or zucchini noodles and adding a drop of basil. What have you said? Only ever in cooking. Yeah, so there's so much more to use basil for, but most usually only know it for its cooking. So what else? Yeah, your culinary benefits, like be my guest, like think of pastas, think of Italian, think of any of the foods that you would usually add basil to. So what I actually love about basil is it's so supportive for the cells. So even, when you go to the garden and you find a basil plant and you drop it in your hands and you inhale it in and it instantly just brings you home into your body. That is why, whether you're putting that in your food as a enhancer of food for culinary benefits, or whether you're using it on your body physically and also for that emotional support, it's going to enhance and support you in every single way in that. Whatever feels comfortable for you and whatever feels good for you. So I really like it for that mind activation with the wild orange. And the last thing I want to tap onto with this oil is I want to tune into the energy and the essence of basil. So for me, the basil plant is, as I said earlier, known as the oil of renewal. And when we think of our body, what actually makes us feel renewed? What actually brings us home into a state where every cell in our body feels activated, alive, nourished, nurtured? And that all starts back to our nervous system. And if we're in this space of fight or flight response, and then, so for instance, we just had doTERRA convention in Sydney the other week, and it was a very stimulating time. There was like 4,500 people, and coming from a beautiful small town of Warwick, that's a third of Warwick, like way too many people for my liking. I'm a simple country girl. And I love it. I love being around people, but it also really activates my nervous system in a way that I can feel intense fatigue because I've been through such an intense fatigue before. So it was really timely that I could use basil this past week and really anchor into its essence, because my body needed so much renewal after 6 days in Sydney. It was honestly so powerful this week, tapping back into what made me feel renewed. And what I love about that as well is it also brings on the questions to myself of what other rituals, what other activities, what other energy work, what other grounding in the earth or food is going to bring a sense of renewal. So it actually brings to me a curiosity and an anchoring into what renewal means to me. So last week we tapped into Arbor Vitae, which is the oil of divine grace. So when I use an oil, not only am I using it for its physical benefits, but I'm also tapping into its emotional, but then what the word in the emotional means to me. So basil, the oil of renewal, how can I create more renewal in my life? How can I create more renewal of my cells, of my body, of my skin, of so many aspects of my being? How can I bring more renewal to my emotions if you're feeling stuck or heavy? So when you choose to anchor into this oil, I encourage you to really tap into what renewal is for you. Journal on it, tap into how you are using renewal in your days, because so often we're so busy, and so often we're in a space that we're feeling burnt out, fatigued, tired, and we're not actually renewing ourselves and nourishing ourselves how we can, and we're not attuned into our soul enough to know that we're actually feeling that way until we're burnt out or until we're running from one place to the other. So I hope that's given you some new ways to use basil, and I would love to hear from anyone who's watching or anyone who watches this later how you use basil in your days, whether that's through your culinary benefits or whether that's for any other part of your life. I would love to hear. And that is my musings on basil this week. So I am going to be sharing and tuning into the anchor of bergamot next week, which I'm really excited about because it's something I've used quite a lot. So I'm looking forward to navigating it next week. If you want to see any more ways of how to use basil, if you look at my Rise with Jessica Carey page, there's posts all week on the emotional, the physical, the practical, the energetic, the sourcing, and some DIY tips of basil. So I would love if you really love this video, please share it, please like it, please heart it, whatever you feel like doing, and share the love. But have a beautiful weekend. I hope you find a sense of renewal in your body, in your soul, in your cells this weekend, and I will see you next week for my musings on bergamot. Mwah!